Hey class, we are back with objective 2.2, consequences of population distribution. You're going to like this one. It's very short, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be looking at how to explain population distribution and density and how that affects society and the environment. This includes political, economic, and social processes, and what that means in terms of being able to provide necessary services. So, how does population distribution and density affect society and environment? You think of ESPN, that American sports network. So, ESPN here in this context describes economic, social, political, and then natural or environmental factors. So, as we think about population distribution and density, and how that affects society and the environment, these are the lenses that we are going to be using: economic, political, and social. So first, social services and infrastructure. Essentially, higher population density impacts access to housing, jobs, water, all kinds of services like sanitation, medical care, fire, police, public transport, waste collection, and a lot more. So if we have high density populations, the plus side would be that it might be easier and in some ways less expensive to be able to provide all those services to clustered populations. That means that you have less infrastructure needed, like less offices, less fire departments, like physical fire departments. And it's easier to get from those services from where they're housed to where those people need them. And even though that's the case, in less distance, less travel, it's still expensive to provide those services for a lot of people. So even though there might be some ease of having that clustered population, it's still expensive. In terms of rural areas where you have people that are dispersed, those services still cost. And even though it's at a lower amount, it's a little bit harder to get to, takes more time. So, there's pros and cons to both. But essentially, populations do need these services provided and that infrastructure to be updated as population grows. So economic in terms of how that affects population distribution and density. Competition for jobs is a big factor. Being able to secure a job is really important for a lot of people. A lot of the reasons why we saw early on rural to urban migration was to acquire jobs. Urbanization due to manufacturing and industrialization really helps to draw people in. With those promised jobs, right? Whenever there's a new factory, it's guaranteed lots of jobs. So there's more tertiary activities that are located in cities. We're going to get into a little bit more of this element of urbanization in a later unit. But for this, all you need to know is that it can increase population density in certain areas. Uneven population distribution can result in uneven development. So when you have scattered or dispersed populations, it can be a lot more difficult to provide the services that are needed. Lower wages for those people oftentimes will mean less access to services. That includes like medical services, maybe educational services, places to like buy groceries and other things. And overall, that could lead to being less developed. For political representation in government goes hand in hand with population distribution and density. So in the previous unit, we talked about the census and how population that is determined by the census will decide how many people are representative of that place within government. Electoral districts have to be generally the same population size, and that is going to allocate the number of representatives within Congress. So this is absolutely true for the US, and then also often true in general for other countries as well. If there is that uneven distribution, then they'll go through a redistricting process, so redrawing these boundaries along with the census to make sure that each area, each voting district is generally the same population size. So that is all for this one. I will see you guys in 2.3.